Troy Taylor has been fired as the head coach at Stanford. We got to talk about what that means for Stanford, what that means for the ACC, what that means for college football, and what that means for Andrew Luck. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a stat mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. So if that's something that you're into, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and leave me a comment below. Who do you think should be the next head coach at Stanford? As there's an opening now in March, right when you're usually getting ready to play spring football. And this is kind of a big deal. The timing on this is also interesting. Not long after Dan Wetzel wrote a really good piece for his new employer, which is ESPN, congratulations to Dan, getting into more of what he's going to do over there, enterprise and investigations, we learned that Troy Taylor had been subject of not one, but two complaints and investigations by third-party investigators, finding out that essentially he had a culture of bullying inside and around the program. And it was becoming a little bit too much at a Stanford program, which is kind of funnily enough, priding itself on purity and really its academics being above everything else. I say funnily enough because those of y'all that know about how Stanford got started and who Stanford is, the term robber baron comes to mind. But the program and the university itself have been standard for excellence. Like, to grow up and say you want to go to Stanford means you wanted to go to an Ivy League out west, right? Palo Alto, the whole bit. And Andrew Luck is the face of Stanford football and has been for some time. This is also an Andrew Luck who had an outstanding career in the NFL before deciding to retire and had been out and about, living life, even renting out an apartment in Paris and having some people stay over there when the Olympics going on. It turns out he wants to get back into football, and he got it back into football at what has become the job to have in our sport over the last 3 years, which is general manager. You are seeing general managers get hired all over basketball, football, what have you, big revenue generating sports as we're entering this revenue sharing age of college football, which is going to be fundamentally change how you go down and how you get down and how you do your business. It means for some that you're going to have to rebuild your program on the fly. And for others, you're going to take advantage of market inefficiencies as you so see them. What I found interesting about Luck's hiring was that he saw at first his role as being to take away everything that Troy Taylor doesn't have to do around football, right? If it doesn't have to do with coaching the team, he was going to take care of it. That meant negotiating name, image, and likeness deals. That meant helping recruit and develop. That meant hitting the transfer portal, really taking on that general manager role as it has traditionally been known in professional sports, because that's what college football is becoming. It's becoming a professional sport. Troy Taylor was one of those guys that we thought was going to have a really high ceiling when he entered into FBS, as he got hired in December 2022 after being, replacing being a great coach at Sacramento State and replacing one of the winningest coaches Stanford history in David Shaw. David Shaw, who replaced Jim Harbaugh, for instance. But then these investigations around his behavior in the program just got to be too much. One of the things that I thought was interesting to bring up here is a person briefed on the decision that Taylor should probably go, had said its significant disciplinary action was probably going to be following here pretty soon. Which is another way of saying, if you've got a culture where you're just going to beat people up verbally and otherwise, or say things to them that are otherwise inappropriate in a workplace setting, we're not going to have that much tolerance for it, if any at all. I would even say zero at this point, especially if it makes it all the way out to ESPN or The Athletic or any other reputable news outlet that is willing to do the investigative work and the journalism to say, hey, you might want to take a look at this culture. What I found also interesting is that Troy Taylor put out a statement last week when this story in ESPN first dropped. And the statement was, I willingly complied with investigations, accepted recommendations that came out of them, and used them as a learning opportunity to grow in leadership and how I interact with others. I will look forward to continuing to work collaboratively and collegially with my colleagues so that we can achieve success for our football program. Less than a week later, he is out of a job. I think this is also Andrew Luck being able to do what general managers generally do. And this is the most significant part of this. Andrew Luck got to make a call that many don't get to make in college. Athletic director usually makes that call. Now, Bernard Muir's going to be on his way out, so say what you will about that. But generally speaking, the athletic director had been the general manager, if not in name, right, in action. You have your director of football operations and whatnot, so forth. But generally, the person signing the checks is the person that gets to tell you when you have to go and when you don't. It's not uncommon for us to see in the NBA, Major League Baseball, or NFL, general managers get to fire a head coach and hire the next one because that's where the buck stops, right? Now, you do have some coaches that have a little bit more perceived power than their general managers, but generally speaking, it's a partnership. Like when you watch the NFL draft go down later this year, one of the things that I think you should focus on is just who's making decisions and just who's making calls, okay? Usually, it's an owner or it's a general manager that gets to congratulate a player on joining their team as a selection. It's not, generally speaking, always going to be a coach. Sometimes it's a coach, but most of the time, general manager gets to make that call unless there's some sort of relationship that is there. We've seen this, right? We know how this goes. It's just kind of shocking to see it happen at the college level because it's never happened at the college level. And for Andrew Luck to make that decision, I don't think anybody in the Stanford community is going to push back against what Andrew Luck thinks is best for Stanford because he is the football program. Like, it's him. And if he wants to go and hire someone new, you're going to let him because Troy Taylor was, frankly, hired before he got the job. And if you want to cede control of the football program to him, give him the guy at coach that he would like, which means we're now in a spot where job's open. Who does he go get? Because I think that this job becomes a much more desirable spot now that they're A, in the ACC, and B, Andrew Luck's going to have your back. Andrew Luck having your back goes a long way, especially when you have to recruit the way that Stanford recruits, right? Stanford does not offer a whole bunch of players. They just do not. They might offer 40 kids in a year because first they need to make sure the academics are there. Then they need to make sure that the person is there, okay? And people have stories about Andrew Luck and the person that he is. Dude was studying architectural engineering, when he was going to school. And then he's able to play in such a way that he is gregarious, he is likable, and he was able to follow Peyton Manning at Indianapolis, and people love him, even now, right? Chose to step away because it's just getting hard to play football. It's just getting hard. I understand that. Many people do. Now he gets to be the guy that's going to make the selection. He gets to be the guy that is going to go through the interview process. But he doesn't have a whole lot of time here if they want to play spring football. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But you got to get on the good foot, and you got to have somebody that you think is ready to go. Because I don't think you can pull the trigger on this unless you think you can go get someone who's better than Troy Taylor or can come in and help you reestablish the program on the footing it's going to need to be on in the revenue sharing era. Again, Stanford is one of those kings of the amateur status. Like, they really do enjoy student athlete. Not athlete, but student athlete. And they make that very clear. To go to Stanford is to go to college and then play football. It's not to go play football. But when you are basically squandering a talent like Elegant Manor, I'm going to pull your chain. I'm going to yank on you, right? When you got to see Ashley Daniels go out, I'm going to yank on you. Because they had players. They've always had players. Hell, Christian McCaffrey went to Stanford. People forget this, right? My goodness. Bryce Love was a monster at Stanford. People forget that too. Toby Gerhart, monster at Stanford. People forget that too. They got dudes. They got players. They can get players. And many of those players don't have to make the bag. They necessarily need the money. They would rather get the degree from Stanford. If that's what you can go recruit in the state of California, hello, you can go do that at a time when Modern Day is signing name, image, and likeness deals for their high school players. Now, I am going to be very curious to find out who wants this job and who we can go get, because I got a bunch of names that we can throw at them. We all got names we can throw at them. I don't think that David Shaw is going to make a return, and I don't think Jim Harbaugh is going to make a return, so you can rule those out. But outside of that, man, I think everybody's going to be open for business that wants to be. I can give you some folks. I wonder if you are Will Stein at Oregon, is this the job that you're waiting on? Probably not, because you're from Texas, right? So there's a job in Texas that you probably want. Not unlike what Kirby Smart was waiting on in Georgia, not unlike what Brent Venables was waiting on at Clemson, or in Oklahoma when he was at Clemson. I think there are guys you can go get. I think that there are going to be comers, more comers that I can think of, man. Like, oh, goodness me, we're about to really hit into some. Because I'm waffling on whose name I want to speak out here, because I'm going to get a phone call and get some text messages off of this. But I would not be surprised to find out there's an NFL coach or two that would like an opportunity to interview for this job, mostly coordinators, right? Guys that played in the old Pac-12 that remember what it was like to play against Stanford or play with Stanford or what have you. I don't think this is going to be a celebrity position. I don't think that this is going to be one of those where, you get Mike Vick going to Norfolk State or Deion Sanders going to Jackson State or Eddie George going to Tennessee State. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's what Andrew Luck's going to look for. I think he's going to look for someone that he knows and trusts, and I would not be shocked to find out that's at the NFL level. I just wouldn't. I think there's a number of other men that he should look at, but given his background and given what Stanford is looking for, and given how you need to probably remake this into something like an NFL model that also creates academic All-Americans like you read about, I'm into it. I can't wait to see what it is that he goes and gets, because I also could think of perhaps you go over to Fresno State and you go, hey, Matt Entz, is that really something you want to do? What do you think? So that man was great at North Dakota State. I can keep going on a line on this. I won't, but I did want to talk about this because it is news, and it is also getting back to what I've been telling people for at least the last 6 years, if not the last 7, since the transfer portal opened up. That's the marker here. You can't just yell at children anymore, and you can't just yell at men anymore. You can't yell at anybody anymore to get them to do what you ask. They got to want to do it. If you're not going to be able to coach them like Tony Dungy did Warren Sapp, they're not going to listen to you. I'm not going to listen to you. I don't respond to getting yelled at. I don't respond to being told that I suck. It's not, that doesn't drive me, right? I do that myself. I don't need your help with that. What you need is someone who wants to teach you and you want to learn from, someone you don't want to let down. And usually that person is kind to you, and they recognize in you that you drive yourself. I write at Fox Sports as well as do this show. And one of my favorite editors, a man named Kevin Jackson, KJ, is one of the reasons that I really enjoyed Page 2 before I knew why I enjoyed Page 2. He would tell me, hey, look, write as much as you need. Write as much as you need. I'm an editor. That's my job. My job is to put you in a position to go do great work, make a play. Like we talk in football terms when we're in our editorial meetings, because that's what it is. It's, hey, RJ, you're the quarterback. What play you want to run? That's my head coach. That's my coordinator. We have a game plan. We go execute that game plan. But if I say I want to run 4 verticals here, and they hear the bass in my voice, the friction, the conviction in my voice, they go, I guess we're running 4 verticals here. But you never want to have to push that person out to play. And you don't have to do that with great players. You don't have to do that with people that work their behinds off. And I grind, man. That's what I do. I think that's what you want if you're Andrew Luck. You want somebody that you don't have to push into play. You want somebody that you might have to pull back a little bit and say, hey, okay, all right, just a little bit. Or, hey, go run it. I'll edit it. You go run it, right? If you're going to be Dre, go find Eminem. That's what you're up for right now. If you need somebody that you got to get them up in the morning to go to work, that ain't the person for you. That's never been me. It's never been me. I don't think that's going to be the person at Stanford, because that job is not, it's fun. It's good. It is not easy. It is not easy, because your identification has to be spot on. You can't afford to miss. Because if nothing else, it's like getting an appointment to the Naval Academy, which, by the way, was one of the coolest things that ever happened to me. Went to Congressman Sullivan's office, and I was asking for it. And I got put through my paces. But you keep it in your back pocket forever. You get offered by Stanford. Forever. It's a thing your parents tell people, right? Forever. It's like being an Eagle Scout for me, or that appointment. It's, you get to do it. The damn play button behind me. I can't wait to see who that person is for Stanford. Can't wait to see who Andrew Luck picks. Because I like Andrew Luck, and I would really enjoy watching Stanford be Stanford, even as we enter into pro football in college.